Hi everyone, I'm here today with a special guest and Jennifer, please can you introduce yourself to the audience?
I'm so happy to be here. My name's Jennifer Forrest, and I'm from the YouTube channel J Forrest English, and I help non-native English speakers improve their English fluency and confidence.
Wonderful. So we're going to have a little chat about language learning and about a number of interesting things when it comes to learning English and any other language in general. So let's get started. And I would start with mindset. I think mindset is really important. What are your, let's say, the most common false beliefs or biases that your students have when it comes to learning English?
What a great question. Great way to start. I also believe that mindset is key. My students know I talk about it all the time. And I would likely say that the biggest false belief is that fluency means you're speaking the language perfectly. My students create so much additional anxiety, fear, stress, overwhelm, frustration simply because they think they need to communicate perfectly in order to consider themselves fluent. And they're constantly negative about their level of English if they make the tiniest mistake or forget one word or compare themselves to my pronunciation. So that's my biggest challenge with my students, is helping them overcome that limiting belief and helping them accept that making mistakes is normal and you can absolutely be fluent and make mistakes. Speaking English as my native language, I still make mistakes, and I share that with my students all the time.
Great. I completely agree with you that perfectionism is a bad thing, and it comes from, again, I think this desire of speaking perfectly, of performing perfectly, but perfection does not exist. So I completely agree, and that's true that we auto-sabotage ourselves with negative beliefs, but then we have the technical, problems when it comes to actually learning. So what, in your view, in your experience, what are the biggest struggles that in general people experience when it comes to learning English?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because on the one hand, students have this fear of making mistakes, but then on the other hand, they're constantly in an environment where their English is being assessed. And they are assessed on their mistakes and told, no, your English isn't good enough. So for my students, honestly, they have struggles with all areas of their English, but the biggest one I hear is speaking. And speaking generally, it combines all different areas, because they say, oh, I can't speak because I lack the vocabulary. I can't speak because they can't understand me because my accent is too thick. I can't speak because I don't have enough grammar knowledge. So different areas of English, but the one problem they vocalize the most to me is their speaking skills and struggling to actually take the language they've been learning for so long and actually turn it into speech, especially with native speakers.
Yeah, I do believe that speaking is complicated in any language, not just in English, because when it comes to speaking, as you correctly pointed out, there's so many sub skills that you have to learn. You have to learn to have, you have to have good pronunciation. You have to enunciate the words, but at the same time, you have to have good intonation. You have to be able to understand what is being said to you. You have to learn to use the grammar on the fly and retrieve vocabulary. So I completely agree with you that speaking is one of the most difficult things, and it's no wonder your students find it difficult. Now, having said that, I do believe that one common, let's say, it's a myth or false belief about English, is that English is a relatively easy language to learn. First of all, I do not think that that is true. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you specifically is, I think, as far as I'm concerned, that English pronunciation, whether it's American English, British English, or Australian English, Irish English, is complex because you have many more sounds than in a lot of other languages. In Italian, we have 5 vowels. In English, you have 23, 24. I do not even remember. So how do you train people or teach people when it comes to acquiring good pronunciation in English? Because yes, speaking is important, but a lot of people find it difficult to pronounce words and utter sentences in English. I don't know if that is the case, but I guess it is. Pronunciation is tough.
Yeah, it definitely, pronunciation is tough. For me as a native speaker, when I learn a new word, maybe it is a technical word that I haven't seen before, I always have to confirm it in an audio dictionary because you can't look at the word and understand the pronunciation, even for me as a native speaker. So pronunciation is very difficult. And because of that, I always do encourage my students, they have to hear it. So to improve your pronunciation, the best thing you can do is hear the word being pronounced by a native speaker. There's a great resource called Youglish, like YouTube and English combined together is called Youglish. You can put in whatever word you want, and then you can hear native speakers pronouncing that word in many different contexts. So hearing the word is absolutely key. You can't learn pronunciation by reading it. You can't learn it from a book. You need to hear it. Best if it's from a native speaker. Best if it's many different native speakers because we all have slightly different accents. And then it's also best to take that word and get comfortable with it individually, but then also hear that word in a sentence. Because in English, the way we pronounce one word individually is different from how we would pronounce it in a sentence if that word is combined with other sounds before and after. So you really have to get comfortable with many different things, but take it slow, take any word, learn how it sounds, isolate it into individual sounds if it's a longer or complex word, get comfortable with that word individually, practice out loud, hear the word in a sentence, shadow those sentences, say them out loud as well. And just through that practice and repetition, you will be able to pronounce the sounds just like a native speaker if you learn the pronunciation from a native speaker.
Excellent. I agree. And I would add another important thing that makes English a very special language. English has mobile stress. So just to give you an example, you can say, she's my English teacher or she's my English teacher. So, and that is slightly different. So one thing for those that follow my YouTube channel, and there's a lot of people out there who are learning English and watch my YouTube videos and Jennifer's videos in order to improve their English. It's important to pay attention to how a given sentence sounds overall. It's important to learn to pronounce each word, but I think that the amazing thing about English is that words can be stressed or unstressed, and if you stress a certain word, so let's say in a given sentence a word is stressed or unstressed, that kind of changes the entire flow, the entire intonation flow of the language. Again, I'm an English teacher, like she's an English teacher, she's an English teacher. I don't know if you guys can tell the difference, but there is a slight difference. So pay attention to how sentences in general sound. I think that's important. English is amazing when it comes to pronunciation and intonation, just like amazing when it's out there. Okay, thank you very much. So speaking, pronunciation, let's talk about grammar. So
Grammar.
A very common problem that people have is that they try to, I don't know if your students have it too, and they say, Jennifer, I'm trying to speak, but I think about grammar rules when I speak, and then I cannot say the sentence anymore because I'm thinking more about the grammar than actually about saying it. I don't know if this has ever happened to your students, and how do you solve that problem? And how do you teach grammar? What do you tell your students? Like, what is your approach when it comes to teaching grammar and training people to learn grammar themselves?
That's a great question as well, because I do hear that from my students all the time. And they say, I've been studying grammar, but then when I go to actually use it, I know the rules of the present perfect, but I completely forget it. I personally believe that grammar is important to speak a language, and I do think you need to study grammar. But when I'm working with my students, keep in mind, these are students at a more intermediate level. I teach them how to use grammar in context. So rather than studying grammar rules, what we do is we'll take a natural piece of content. So maybe I'll take a paragraph from the news, or I'll take a paragraph of a transcript from a TV show, or I'll get them to listen to a paragraph from a TV show. So a very short segment of that TV show. And then we'll look at a sentence and we'll analyze it together. So we might focus on learning a specific phrasal verb or an expression. And first they understand what that means. But then we look, okay, so notice that in this expression, what verb tense is it? And just get them to think about it. Oh, it's in the present perfect. Why is that? And so to try to understand that grammar isn't just something in a rule book that's there to complicate you. It's actually used to communicate ideas. And if you change a verb tense, it can really change the message, and it can change how you communicate the meaning of that idea. So it is important to understand grammar, but it's not very helpful to just memorize grammar rules, because you need to see how that grammar is being used in the real world. Now, as I said, this is more for my intermediate students. If it's a very pure beginner, I might review some basic grammar concepts with them to help them just understand the foundations of the English language before we start that exercise. But I do try to get my students to start looking at language in the real world, understanding how grammar is used in context, using natural content, using content they love, TV shows, YouTube, movies, Netflix, the news, so they can really take that grammar and use it in the real world.
Excellent. I love your answer. Learning grammar from context. Famed Hungarian polyglot Lomkato, or Katalom, actually in Hungarian is Lomkato, used to say, do not learn language from grammar, but learn grammar from language. And that, when I read that really struck a chord with me. I told myself, well, in just a few sentences, she crafted it so elegantly, such a complex idea, but just a simple idea, actually, in a very, beautifully crafted prose. And your comments and your approach reflects that statement, and mine as well. I always tell my students, learn grammar from language. This does not mean that you cannot read grammar explanations, but only after you consume meaningful content and you extract grammar rules. And if you do it with a native speaker who explains that, even better. So wonderful. Okay, so we talked about speaking, we talked about pronunciation, we talked about grammar. There's another big component, big part of language learning and learning English, that is words, vocabulary. In order to speak, you have to learn a lot of words. So, and here too, there's a lot of myths and false beliefs that you have to make lists and you have to learn and you have to memorize every word. What's your approach?
Of course, you need a wide range of vocabulary to express your ideas. And even in my own native language, I tell my students, I still learn new words. New technology creates so many new words. And as a native speaker, I have to learn those words as well. So we will all be language learners, and we will all continue to increase our vocabulary as we go on. Now, as for my approach, it's similar to my approach to learning grammar. It's by taking a natural piece of content and understanding the individual words as well, and seeing how those words are being used in the context of a sentence. So I really try to emphasize to my students not to just create a big, long list of vocabulary, and definitely not in certain categories. Okay, I'm going to learn 20 animals for no reason at all. You don't ever talk about animals in your daily life. You don't work for the zoo. You don't go to the zoo, but for some reason you're going to sit there and learn a long list of 20 animals in English. So I try to get them to just read natural content, the news, be exposed to different vocabulary. And then I also try to get them to think about what's the vocabulary that you need in your daily life. So if you are a marketing manager, I would suggest that you read blogs or watch videos related to marketing because you need to expand your vocabulary specific to that topic. But then, of course, you have hobbies. So if your hobby is playing guitar, well, then you should start reading or listening, absorbing content on that and expanding your vocabulary while also learning grammar, pronunciation, and other sentence structure all at the same time. And then think about all the different areas of your life. Think about what topics you enjoy discussing, what topics you need to discuss in your daily life. If you need to take your car to the mechanic, well, then you're going to have to learn the vocabulary around that, but make it practical. Always look to expand your vocabulary that you will actually use, not just 20 random animals for no reason at all, or 20 random shapes in English that you see in grammar books or on other videos. So make it practical to your life, and then start actually using that vocabulary and make it a goal. You will always be learning vocabulary, always expanding your vocabulary. So it's not something that is just going to be for 30 days and then you've learned everything you need.
I think the recipe is simple, but a lot of people do not see the simplicity of it. It's just immerse yourself in the language, consume content you like, and use the language that you need to use in order to get your point across and to have meaningful conversations. That's how you learn vocabulary as a consequence, rather than the main focus where people try to scribble and to jot down all the words and make lists of words and try to remember and try to recall. I don't know if you use in your system, do you use any spaced repetition system where you have, I don't know, flashcards, or you, like your students, try to not memorize, but try to review the words? Or you just go like, hey, just consume content you like, watch, read, listen, and use the language, and the words will come to you rather than you go towards the words?
Yeah, I do think it is important to have that practice and repetition of anything that we're learning, because imagine in your own native language, if your friend shared an address with you or a name of a restaurant, a name of the movie, and the next day, 24 hours later, what was the name of that movie? What was that address? What was that restaurant she told me about? We forget information if we don't repeat it. That's just how our brain works. So I do reinforce my students the importance of practice and repetition. I don't necessarily think there's one right or wrong way. I think flashcards are great. And I think there's other ways that you can do it as well. So just find a way that works for you. But if you are going to go through the process of learning specific concepts, whether it's vocabulary, grammar, anything, your brain does need multiple exposures in order to reinforce that so you can use it fluently when you need it.
Makes total sense. I wanted to make one last final observation about this, is that especially when it comes to English, but in other languages this happens all the time. Like the same word can mean different things, but can also have different functions. In English, for example, you can say, let's say the word game, right? A game, what is the very first thing that comes to your mind when you say game? Well, probably, I don't know, the Super Bowl or someone playing sports. But in reality,
It was Monopoly.
or Monopoly, well, depending on the person, but let's say that in general, the idea is like to play, right? To play a game. You associate that with, people playing, etc. But actually, game also means wild animals. We're hunting game. So the amazing thing is that if you find this word, the first time I came across this word, hunting game. What do you mean? Hunt and game? Hunting Monopoly? You're like chasing the Monopoly thing? Like it was weird. Then you realize that you naturally understand and learn that words have different connotations, different meanings depending on context. The same thing for man, the word man. What do you think when you think about a man? Is a man, right? A man, a woman. But actually, to man is, for example, to handle something, like to man something. So that's depending also what comes before or after. To man something means, that's a verb. So you have some meanings that are really common, other meanings that are less common. But the amazing thing is that when you read, when you expose yourself, as you were saying, you expose yourself to a lot of stuff. You read, you watch movies, documentaries, and then you speak. You will understand that words have different meanings depending on context, and you will learn how to use them correctly depending on the person you're talking to and depending on context. So, great. So, talked about speaking. Let me do a quick recap. Speaking, grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary. And now let's talk about a couple of other important things that I want to address. We started with mindset. Let's finish with mindset. So, with mindset and the psychological aspects of learning. So let's face it, language learning can be frustrating, right? A lot of people get bogged down. Sometimes they get stuck, and sometimes they lose faith. Well, what do you tell a student if you've had students who come to you and say, Jennifer, I've been learning English for years and I can't speak. I'm discouraged, I'm demotivated, I'm frustrated, and I'm about to give up. What do you tell them?
Well, that's not a hypothetical situation for me because I do get messages from students like that more often than I'd like. And the one thing that I want the students to know, first and foremost, is that's normal. I get frustrated. I get frustrated with my YouTube channel on a weekly basis. And there's so many times I want to just throw my laptop out the window and quit and give up. And the reason I don't, though, is because I have a stronger motivation for why I'm doing it. So I think, first of all, if you have a very strong motivation for why you're doing something, or a strong goal, something, a vision that you're really working towards, that you really feel passionate about. So I would remind my students to just reflect on why you're learning English. Because for my students, a lot of the times they have these really amazing goals. They want to provide a better life for their family. They want to get a better job so they can send their kids to a great school, take care of their parents, move their family into a safer environment. So they have this really powerful motivation. And even if it's just to travel or as a hobby, still, there's so much enjoyment that can provide you. So stop for a second, remind yourself why you're doing this, and really just feel that feeling that you get thinking about your future, your vision for the future. And then also maybe just take a break. Sometimes just take a break, go for a walk around. That can be very helpful as well. And then there's so many things that my students can do, but one of the things also is just they compare themselves to others, other learners who are better than them, compare themselves to native speakers. So just try to reflect on the progress that you've made and celebrate small successes. At the end of every day, every week, just feel really proud of what you've done that week. Wow, I feel more confident using this one expression. That's really great. I learned a new expression today. How awesome is that? So take some time and really celebrate all those small successes. Remind yourself why you're learning English, and take a break and just get some fresh air. If you do those three things from personal experience, because I do them as well, I know they will help you feel a lot better.
Fantastic. I agree with every single piece of advice. So, and speaking of success, small success, big successes, can you share a story? Do you have some stories to share where, you took a person who was not very happy about their English, and then now they speak it well, they use it, maybe they met their partner, or like stories, or one story where English made a difference, an existential difference in the life of a person?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And honestly, I do. I have so many success stories. I get them all the time from my students. I save the emails because it motivates me as well, reading these success stories. But the first student who came to my mind is one of my students, Yevgenia, who's from Russia. And she came to my mind first because we actually worked together in person maybe 10 years ago when I taught in person in a classroom, and she was one of my students. And she had been learning English her entire childhood, her entire life. She was a young adult, and she always focused on just studying grammar rules, because that's all they learned in school was just learn grammar, memorize. And then we started working together. And she started transitioning from being a language learner to a language user. She started studying native speakers, using natural expressions, having fun with the content that she was using to learn English, TV, movies, Netflix. And she was surrounded by a community of other learners. And she formed a study group with some of the other students, and they would study together every week. And by study, they would study, but they would also just chat and have conversations and not think about English grammar rules and just communicate and communicate and communicate. And it really changed her life, because before she's a very smart, skilled individual, but she was too nervous, too hesitant to really push herself outside of her comfort zone to go for opportunities. But the last time I checked, she got a promotion where she's using her English at work. She's talking to clients in English. So she really transitioned from being a language learner to a language user, and just using her language and having fun with English as well. So that's hearing successes like that always make me smile, for sure.
Wonderful. And it reminds us all, you listening to us and watching this video, that you can do that too. Like if you were stuck, if you're finding it difficult to learn English, French, Spanish, whatever, you can transition from language learner to language user and learn any language you want, provided that you believe in yourself, you believe you can do it, you have the right strategies, and you spend time trying to improve every single day. Thank you, Jennifer. Where can people find you? You were mentioning you have a YouTube channel that sometimes frustrates you. That's like same thing. We're on the same boat. What's the name of the channel? And anyway, I will leave all the proper links in the description box.
Absolutely. So for anyone who's learning English as a second language, you can find me on my YouTube channel, J Forrest English, JFORREST English. My name's Jennifer Forrest, and we will have so much fun learning English together. I can't wait to see you there.
Fantastic. So that's it. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day, you all, and happy language learning as always. Bye from Rome, and bye from, I don't know where you are, but
bye from Canada.
bye from Canada. That's up.